Hi everybody, Father Scott Vanderveer here with another look at one of those parts of our faith that a lot of us misunderstand, or perhaps more accurately, partially understand, and could gain a lot more peace by understanding more about them. The thing I'd like to talk about today is divorce. I guess when I was younger, I misunderstood, or perhaps only partially understood, what divorce felt like to people. I think if I were asked to describe it when I was younger, I would have said, I would imagine it feels kind of like failing at something that you really wanted to be good at. I imagine it was like wishing that you could have taken on that project and really seen it through to completion, but found out midway that it wasn't the right project for you, or that it was too hard to complete. I now realize that that's not how divorce feels. I don't pretend to know what it's like to be divorced, since I'm not, but I can see from the people I work with, it feels like a bomb goes off in the center of your life. It is a tragedy. It is beyond description. No one gets in front of the altar at a Catholic church preparing for their wedding day, or walking down the aisle on their wedding day, or standing there to receive their spouse at the front of the aisle. No one expects to get divorced. No one enters into marriage expecting or anticipating in any way that divorce is on the horizon. So the first thing that needs to be acknowledged is that divorce is a tragedy, that it traumatizes people. It's a horror in people's lives. Many people think that the Catholic Church makes the tragedy worse by judging the people who are divorced. And I'd like to address that in this segment, because I understand what people are saying when they say that. And I understand the discomfort that people have with someone who is divorced being treated with anything other than 100% pure compassion. I think, though, that there are some misunderstandings about what the church sees in divorce and how the church approaches divorce, and I'd like to dispel some of that and clarify some things as we talk about this today. The first thing I'd like to say is that when a person gets married in a Catholic church, they're married in two ways. They're married legally, and they're married sacramentally. You do not need to be married in a Catholic church in order to be married legally. Many people go to the courthouse, can be married by the justice of the peace, or the mayor, or another elected official who has been designated as an officiant for the sacrament of marriage. All of those things are possible. But when you get married in a Catholic church, the government recognizes the role of the priest or deacon and grants to the priest or deacon the ability to not only officiate a religious ceremony, but to make it legally binding as well. Priests and deacons are official wedding officiants, solemnizers, those who can make a marriage legally binding by their presence in the ceremony. But when you have a priest or a deacon marrying you, it is also a sacramental bond. It is a sacrament, one of the seven. So just as baptism and reconciliation are sacraments, just as confirmation and Eucharist are sacraments, just as holy orders and anointing of the sick are sacraments, marriage is a sacrament. It's one of those seven. That means that, like all sacraments, it can never be dissolved. A marriage can never be undone sacramentally. Once a sacrament has been enacted, once it has been unleashed in the world, it can never be undone. You can never unbaptize a baby. You can never unconfirm a person or unanoint a person, nor can you unordain a person. Whenever one of those sacraments is received, it is for forever. So, going back to the trick about marriage, that means divorce is not possible sacramentally. It is possible legally, but not sacramentally. In order for a marriage to no longer be sacramental, it has to have been declared to never have been sacramental in the first place. And that is what an annulment is. An annulment is a declaration that follows an investigation deep into the roots of a marriage. And in that investigation, the church looks to find if there possibly was a tragic, fatal flaw that was right in the root of the union between the two people. The church is looking for that tragic flaw that explains that on the day that that couple was married, they thought they were experiencing a sacrament, and the priest thought that they were experiencing a sacrament, and all of the people in the church thought that they were experiencing a sacrament. But God knew this is a legal arrangement, but this is not sacramental. Everyone here believes that it is, but they are wrong. There is something missing from this being able to be a sacrament. Now, maybe in the investigation, what they'll find out is that one of the two people did not fully understand what marriage was, or had a partial understanding of marriage. Perhaps they had never experienced what a lifelong commitment was, or they had some kind of impediment to being able to form a lifelong commitment. Perhaps because they had a latent mental illness or a condition that prevented them from being able to make a lifelong commitment. Perhaps they had an addiction that was unrevealed or was laying dormant. Perhaps they had some sort of emotional imbalance that made it impossible for them to make a lifelong commitment. But there's many other possibilities as well. It may be that they had pressure being put on them by other people and outside forces telling them, you have to get married. You won't be able to have A, B, or C unless you're married. You won't get to have children. You won't be able to have a family. You won't be able to get your green card or your legal status. You won't be able to financially afford things. All of those things are outside pressures that have nothing to do with the spiritual formation of a union. So an annulment is a deep investigation to find out what might have been at the root of that marriage not working for this couple. What might have been at the root of what made this look like a sacrament and feel like a sacrament, but actually be disqualified sacramentally because it had some pre-existing condition that made it impossible for it to be sacramental. One of the things that sometimes people are surprised by is there are a number of situations that are not grounds for an annulment. Because in a wedding, a couple makes a promise to stay together for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. So if someone says that their marriage dissolved because their loved one had a sickness, that's not a problem in the root of the marriage. That's not something that would prevent a sacrament from being formed. That is a case of better or worse. If there's infidelity in a marriage, that is not a case, at least at face value, for an annulment, because that is an example of better or worse. However, here's an example. Some people are constitutionally incapable of fidelity. Perhaps they have an addiction to sex or pornography. Perhaps they have some kind of situation that prevents them from being able to stay monogamous. That might be grounds for an annulment, because a person has to be able and willing and fully consenting to form an indissoluble, lifelong, monogamous marriage on the day of their wedding. So you see, this is the situation that the church finds herself in. It is the job of the church to make sure that every woman, man, and child is able to live to their full potential, is able to flourish in life. And for some people, they need to get out of the marriage that they are a part of, because it is an unholy union. It is not a sacrament. It is something that has revealed itself not to be wholesome. So the church's job, on the one hand, is to allow each person to flourish and live fully their best life. But at the same time, the church has to safeguard the sacraments. And the church has to uphold the institution of marriage. There's no other organization in the world that can do that. No one else is equipped to support marriage the way the church is. And all of us agree that marriage and family life is an essential building block of human civilization. And so the church sometimes, in the situation of divorce, has two situations of great value to weigh out at the same time: the full flourishing of the person and the valuing of the sacrament and institution of marriage. The way the church is able to help people find their way to freedom is when the church can determine through a deep, thorough investigation that there never was a sacramental marriage there, that what appeared to be a sacrament was actually flawed, was defective in the root because of a problem that was in one or both of the lives of the people getting married, or there was a pressure being placed on them that prevented them completely from being able to make that commitment. Some annulments are granted because of simple technicalities, and all of them follow this same method and format and explanation. For one, some Catholics get married without a priest present or a deacon present. Catholics are not permitted to do that without permission. And so if a Catholic forms a marriage that is legally binding, but does it without going through the church, that's not a sacrament. And so that annulment would be granted on a technicality. If the couple was intoxicated on the day of their wedding, that annulment is granted automatically as a technicality. You can't make a full assent of your whole will and mind, body, mind, and spirit when you're intoxicated. You've got to be fully present and have all of your faculties on the day that you make that solemn commitment. There are some other examples as well, but I'd like to talk a little more about this in a part 2 of this little reflection that we're having on divorce in the Catholic Church. So let's stay tuned for that, and please know how much you are valued by every single person in this family of faith. We deeply want to talk with you and walk with you on your journey of healing after divorce. Please know that you are not being judged. Please know that you are not being regarded as a second-rate Catholic. It's simply the process of finding our way to freedom after what is truly a remarkable journey in the experience of marriage and divorce. We are here at St. Mary's to help you walk that journey. And if you're from somewhere else, the priest or parish pastoral minister in your area is also fully equipped to help you on that journey. You can also reach out directly to our diocesan tribunal by calling the Diocese of Albany at 453-6600 and asking for the tribunal. We thank you for considering this important reflection, and we ask you to keep your mind and heart open as you consider deeply how the church is meant to help us with the struggles in life like this one. May God bless you all.